So you're baking bread with 100% fresh milled wheat, but you've heard that your dough needs to reach a window pane test result in order to know that your dough is good and will turn out great with baking. Is this true? What is it? And is it actually necessary? Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel, we talk all things real whole grains from a biblical perspective. I teach you how to be milling your wheat, why you should be consuming real whole grains, and more. So you may be new to baking with freshly milled wheat, or you may be a seasoned vet, and you may have heard of your dough needing to have the window pane result to ensure that you're gonna have a good loaf of bread. But is this actually true? And do I actually look for the window pane result whenever I'm baking my bread? I've actually seen a lot of people kind of get a little stressed out about it, so I'm here to kind of hopefully calm you down about it. So in this video, what we're going to be discussing is just really quick, what is the window pane result? What exactly are you looking for in your dough? And why do bakers say that you need a window pane result in your dough to create good bread? And then I'm actually going to show you what I do. What do I look for whenever I'm baking bread with 100% freshly milled wheat? I'm going to kind of show you my process. I got to bake bread today anyway, so I'm going to bring you along when I do that. And because personally, I don't think I've ever tested my bread dough for window pane. And I've been milling my wheat for over a decade. And I don't think I've ever actually tested it. I look for other things. So we're actually going to test to see if my dough does pass a window pane test, and also specifically showing you what I look for besides that test to make sure that I've got a really good dough. All right, so first of all, let's just get it out. What exactly do I mean by the window pane test? Maybe you're kind of freaking out because you're like, oh no, I've never even checked this with my bread. Am I missing something? All that is the window pane test basically is after you have kneaded your bread dough, that you basically stretch it out as thin as you can without it tearing. And basically you're wanting to look for it to be thin enough where you can see light shining through, kind of like you do with the window. So not transparent, you're not going to see through like glass, but think like frosted glass where you see light coming through your dough. And what this is showing you is that the gluten has been developed enough where it is stretchy, your dough is not breaking. If you have baked bread before, if you've kneaded dough before kneading dough, you probably notice that your dough kind of breaks off. You can't really stretch it. It's really going to break off. And so this is one of the tests to make sure that that gluten has been activated enough to ensure that your bread is going to have a great rise, which is definitely important. So that's just a simple window pane test. Now, me personally, what do I do? I don't check for window pane. Now, I'm also very experienced with baking bread, and so I definitely know by the feel of the dough now, if it's good. And my process is pretty streamlined that I just know if I follow the process, I'm going to have great dough, so long as I don't jack it up in some way. So here's what we're going to do, because I also want to test this to see if my dough actually does pass the window pane test. Now, what I'm going to do, the wheat that I'm going to choose to use is a hard red wheat. And again, this is 100% freshly milled. The reason why I'm choosing a hard red is my instincts are telling me that the hard red would probably be the most difficult to achieve a window pane test. And I wish I could put into words why I believe that is. But I can't. It's mainly because other wheats, they may already be a little bit more elastic or a little bit softer just because of the type of wheat that it is. So I'm going to go ahead and use something that I know that, hey, if you're using and your dough turns out great with this wheat, you'll be good with other wheats as well. So we're just going to be using 100% all hard red wheat, and also my simple yeast bread loaf recipe, but I'm going to be doing my big mama batch, so I'm going even bigger where I can pretty much make 5 loaves of bread, but I'm going to be making some rolls with part of that because we are needing rolls for supper tonight. And another little thing is if I sound a little out of breath and a little nasally, that is because I am coming off a little bit of a cold and I am a bit congested, and so breathing is fun times. So let's bust out the mill and my mixer and all my ingredients, and let me walk you through what I'm looking for with my dough. Okay, so we're just waiting for this. This is the autolyse process where I just combine the water, the yeast, and a little bit of the flour. For this big batch, I use 3 cups of flour to just let it soak, get the yeast all bubbly and everything like that. And while that's going on, just to mention what I have here, the grain mill that I'm using, this is Miss Wanda. She's my Nutri-Mill, or my Wonder Mill. I've had her, she's my very first mill, and I love her, she's great. And then this is, of course, is the Bosch Universal Mixer Plus, AKA Miss Betsy. All right, so that part is done. Now to continue with the rest of the recipe, adding in the olive oil and honey and the salt. Start adding in the flour. Now for this big bomba batch, I'm gonna need anywhere from 12 to 14 cups of flour. So I've already added in 3. I basically like to go until this is full. That's around 12, maybe 11 or 12 cups of flour. And then here's a little hint. This is part of what I do. I stop measuring my flour because then I'm just looking for it to start coming off the sides of the bowl with this mixer, and that's when I know that I've added enough flour and I start the kneading process. So that's a big, huge tip right there with freshly milled flour, especially is that it can vary day by day. You cannot just, if the recipe calls for 12 cups of flour, you may need more, you may need less. And that's why you need to just look for these type of things so you can adjust based on where you live, if it's cold, if it's hot, if it's humid, if it's raining, all of those type of things. So let's add this. I will probably have to mill some more flour. Okay, so as you can see, this is a total of 11.5 cups of flour. I'm gonna go and mix this in, and then as it's mixing, I'm gonna slowly start adding that flour until it starts pooling off the sides of the bowl. Usually I'm mixing this at a 1 on my Bosch, but for this big batch, I start going at a, I put it on the 2 level because it's just a lot of dough. All right, so you can see here, not pulling off the sides of the bowl in the slightest. Okay, so you can see there how it's just starting to pull off the sides of the bowl, and then I just wait to see, is it still gonna be coming off the sides of the bowl? And not quite, I wanna add a teensy bit more. Okay, so this is what I'm looking for, where it's coming off the sides of the bowl. Now I start my kneading time, and I just know that this is a kneading time of 9 minutes. It works every time in my Bosch, no problem whatsoever. If you have a different mixer, it may vary, but I know with the Bosch and the Nutri-Mill Artiste, 9 minutes is an excellent kneading time. But you can see how it's coming off the sides of the bowl. By the end of the kneading, most of this, if not all of it, will actually be scraped off the sides of the bowl. So now we're gonna start the kneading for 9 minutes, and then that's when we test for windowpane and also show you other factors I'm looking for when it comes to my dough. Oh, before I meant to do this, before we really get this going, just want to show you, this is what it looks like starting off with, where everything's very sticky and this dough is very much breaking apart here. It's not wanting to be very elastically. So we're gonna, elasticity, if that's even a word. So we're gonna compare this to after the kneading. All right, so it is done kneading and you can see that bowl is clean. Now, from here, here's when ideally you check for windowpane. But before I do that, other things that I'm looking for is, first of all, I already know, again, this is kind of not fair because I already know after 9 minutes, this is good dough. But specifically, I'm looking for a dough to where it's basically tacky. You can see how I'm having some dough come on my hands. And honestly, I want that. Now, you can see here, it comes off, it does pull off on its own, not too far. It's not sticky, crazy, insanely sticky. It is tacky. And the reason why I do this is because as I'm shaping, shaping it and getting it to whatever shape I'm doing, I just lightly dust my hands with flour, and that's incorporating into the dough, and it keeps it from not being too dense. I haven't added too much flour. So this is predominantly what I look for. I want this dough to be where it's tacky. So now whenever I really dip in and pull out, I'm not really having much dough at all on my fingers. And it is actually pretty stretchy. So let me move this to where you can see this a bit better. So here we have a good dough. Again, I can completely, I'm mashing my hands down in it. It is coming off. Okay, let me see if I can do that again. See, it's coming off there. So again, I have dough on my hands. It's okay. Now, and then I can do this. And then what I do is then I just, where I'm lightly flouring my hands, and then that allows me to work with the dough. And then now it's not sticking at all. So that's mainly what I'm looking for. This dough is soft. It can stretch pretty well. Now, let me test to see if my dough actually passes the window pane test. All right, so basically when you do the window pane test, you're just taking some of your dough and then you are stretching it out as thin as you can get. Okay, and then it starts breaking. So you don't want to do it obviously to when it breaks. The point is that it stays still, but you can get it pretty thin. Now let's see how thin I can get this. Okay, I would say that's about as thin as I can get it. Having trouble focusing. Okay, but you see it starts tearing. Technically this dough, I would say, does not pass a window pane test. But this dough is gonna be perfect dough. My bread, I already know by feeling it, it's gonna turn out beautifully and just fine. Now I do know whenever I'm doing hard white wheat, I tend to be able to do the window pane test easier. But that's why I wanted to show you this hard red wheat, because honestly, it's a bit harder to get. That's about as thin as I can get it. And I mean, I would say it's barely passing the window pane test, but then it starts tearing. Like just as I see light coming through, it wants to make these little holes like that. So technically that would be a fail, which is why I don't worry about the window pane test. I'm looking for a soft dough. It does stretch. This stretches very well. Okay, I've already kind of messed it up, but ultimately this stretches very well. I'm gonna be able to shape it in the dough. I'm gonna show you how I shape it into my loaves and my rolls. And this is gonna be good, but it is slightly tacky. I'm just keep making sure it's focusing on my hands, not my face. But it is slightly tacky. I do consistently have a little bit of dough on my hands, but that's what I look for. And I want that. I want a soft dough and one that's slightly tacky. So now let's shape this, and I'm gonna rise it and bake it, and we're gonna see the final product to show you I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so here's my massive big part of dough. I'm just gonna do some rolls first. So I already have my grease pan here, and I have a video all about how I do my rolls and how I do my loaf bread. That is definitely a more detailed video there. So we're just shaping these into rolls. There you go, little ball there. Each time if it just gets too tacky or sticky, I just dust my hands again, because as you get into the center of the dough, you're gonna notice probably it's a bit more tacky of a dough. That is normal. Just lightly dust your hands again. And the fact that it's just tacky ensures I'm not adding too much flour. The window pane test, I think that definitely came across about with predominantly, you know, you're using store-bought flour. Well, we're not doing that here. This is 100% fresh milled wheat, which is you know, a different game. And I would say, yeah, the white flour that has had that bran and germ sifted out, it has less things to cut through that gluten. And so it is far easier to do the window pane test on white flour than it is freshly milled. But as I keep showing you and telling you, you can still get lighter, you know, light, fluffy rolls and bread loaves, even if your dough doesn't pass the window pane test. Got my rolls. Now let me just run through a loaf real quick. Okay, so I've got that. Set that aside. Here we go. This right here, my best one of my most used tools in my kitchen, along with my scraper. Gotta have these must-haves when using dough. Okay, so you can see how I'm able to roll it out. And again, the stretchy quality where I'm able to pull it out a little bit, come over, and this is still feeling soft. It's not breaking on me. If it was breaking on me here, that would tell me, you know, not enough gluten structure needs to be kneaded more. But here I can stretch out, and this is all the stretching that I need to do. It is still feeling soft. It's good. I'm just dusting a little bit of flour, and this is still feeling good and light, and shaping very much matters as well when it comes to rising your bread. All right, smooth on top, not so pretty on the bottom, but that's okay. And you just really want to make sure that's good. And then putting it in a bread loaf pan. I'm going to continue making the rest of this, letting this rise, and then we will actually check the softness and beautiful bread that will be coming out. So I'll see you then. All right, here we go with the rolls. They smell divine. And this is the best time actually to serve them, is whenever they are straight out of the oven, piping hot. So meaning I'm about to burn my hands for y'all's sake because I love you. But you can see there, that is I'm sorry, I gotta get something here. Whew. So you can see that is a super fluffy. These are so good. The best rolls, absolutely amazing. Guests love them, everyone love them. But a super fluffy roll, even though it didn't pass the window pane test. And when the bread loaves are done, I'll show you those as well. Okay, here's one of my loaves. Absolutely beautiful. And here we go with this loaf. And look, squishy. This is still pretty warm. So this is still such a nice, soft loaf, but still a really, really great loaf. Can't slice into it yet. Now I gotta let it completely cool down, which we will do. But soft loaves failed the window pane test, y'all. But it turned out really well. So that's it, y'all. Hopefully this helps alleviate your fears if you're not getting that window pane, and also help you just knowing what actually is important to look for when using 100% freshly milled wheat and getting those beautiful, soft, lighter type loaves, even with a whole grain wheat. So for those of you who actually want to see a breakdown of my simple yeast bread recipe, you can check out that video right here. And as always, I hope y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week. Bye.